All right, let's try this. Marsan, you got the memo, yay. One of my partners on this project just texted me and said that we have 428 people connected online, as well as you guys in the audience. So hello to Martians everywhere, Marsan. To be a little more specific, Marsan is a greeting. So we were actually speaking Martian just now. Model Mars is a program, an application, a platform that allows young people all over the world to envision and build futures on Mars. So one of our youth teams, when we ran the prototype a few months ago, invented the word Marsan as a all-inclusive greeting, a wish of well-being, kind of like aloha or shalom. So now you know, anytime anyone says Marsan, you say Marsan back, Marsan. Okay, now we can continue. All right. Model Mars takes place in the year 2075 on Mars. That's quite a leap from now, and you may wonder why we chose that particular year. We actually just chose approximately 50 years in the future because we figure by then people will have settled into their lives on Mars. A lot of the heavy lifting will have been done. We want to thank all the engineers and the electricians and mechanics and designers and everybody else who built the infrastructure and made sure that we can live our Martian lives comfortably, securely, so we don't have to worry about dying every day. And we now have time to spend thinking about, how will our lives on Mars evolve? What kind of governance systems? How will we communicate? How will we buy and sell things? Or will we even buy or sell things? A lot of questions to be answered about our futures on Mars. So that is what the Model Mars project is all about. Here's one of our teams. This is our team from Kenya. They're working on their Model Mars project. It's a STEAM platform that's STEM plus the arts, in which young people have a virtual experience of being on Mars, and they work with a team of other youth Martians. And this is our Brazil team. They're the ones that came up with Marsan. And what they do is they work collaboratively to solve a problem, and it all collectively helps us figure out how life on Mars might evolve. And then full circle, how that might translate back to improving lives on Earth. So that's what, in a nutshell, what Model Mars is all about. Here are a few quotes. We ran the prototype a few months ago. I'm going to show you some details from the prototype. What actually happens when you let this thing loose with young people all over the world. And then we polled our participants afterwards, and these are a few of the quotes we got, helping us figure out kind of what's working, anything we might be able to do differently or improve. So we're working on the next iteration right now. These are kind of the components that go into the Model Mars experience. Is kind of like storytelling meets fiction, meets science meets science fiction, meets collaboration, meets futuristic thinking, meets world building. We tried to put a lot of different things in this because we really wanted young people to be able to explore Mars in all of these aspects. The way it works is we start with stories. So we had very short mini stories written. I'll show you the storytellers in a moment. And by design, the stories are left unfinished because the whole point of Model Mars and the teamwork on Model Mars is that you figure out how to finish the story. Every story sets up a conflict or a challenge or an issue that needs to be addressed. The next part, after they kind of unpack the story and figure out what needs to be done, is that they role play, they become characters in the stories. They organize themselves as a team, and then they go on what we call journeys, which is like a quest or a mission. And they, along the way, explore, they research, they discuss, they try things, they try more things until they figure out what they think is the best approach to solving the problem or addressing the challenge. At the end of this journey, as we're calling it, each team creates a representation of what its journey was like. And this can be anything. It can be art, it can be performance, it can be data, it can be menus, it can be anything that they think represents their Model Mars experience. I'm going to show you some examples in a few minutes. And then they write a short narrative kind of explaining why this artifact, and that's how they finish the story. At the very, very end, everybody gets together and one big virtual convening, and they report out. So every team reports out. They unveil their artifacts, and then we show them what they can do with their artifacts, which is a virtual museum on Mars, which I'll also show you in a moment. This is my team. We are co-founders, co-developers. We represent a wide range of experience. Jen Breslin had many years at the United Nations. She brings the concept of Model Mars. If you're familiar with the Model UN, it's when young people come from all over the world, come together to solve problems globally. So we're kind of taking that idea to Mars. Rocky Rajani is an engineer, a researcher. She's a futurist. She's a psychologist. She does all kinds of things working in the private industry for some very high profile companies. Jen Blank is a NASA planetary scientist. She works with Martian-like environments on Earth to learn about Mars. And then there's me, Jan Millsapps. I'm standing up here telling you all of this stuff. That's my role, I guess. Just so you'll know, we recruited people from all over the world. These are our prototype partners. Envoys were the people who worked most directly with the youth teams. Advisors were people that helped us out in many other ways, all extremely valuable. This is our creative team. We had people to specifically write stories around specific issues that we were thinking about. So our storytellers came up with the concepts for the stories. And then we found this amazing map maker, Nicole Barbadillas, who works at the University of Arizona where is that, Tucson? Yeah. And she works with the high-rise imagery. So what we were able to do was describe in general where we wanted our Martian settlements to be. And she came up with this very detailed map, which is amazing. So the green parts show you where missions have actually landed on Mars. We were being hopeful about Rosalind Franklin, so we put it in there. We hope it's going to get there sooner or later. But then the red arrows are where our fictional settlements are. And she figured out exactly, like we had one settlement that's underground in a lava tube. So that's the Rexy tube. She put it in a part of Mars where there are likely to be a bunch of lava tubes. So she was very good about matching our fictional ideas for where people would settle on Mars with actual Mars locations. And we named them after people who have been instrumental in the history of Mars exploration. If you don't know who any of these people are, you can ask me. The one that might be least familiar to you is Rexy Leonard, but she's almost the love of my life. She was Percival Lowell's assistant at the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, and she was one of the first women to study and publish about Mars. So you probably know who the other people are. Donna Shirley designed the first rover, Sojourner, and of course you know who Elon is. And Mimi Ong designed the Ingenuity helicopter that's up there flying around right now. So other things we had to put together before we could start, tools and resources. Some of these we came up with ourselves, like we call them hint cards or prompt cards. If they get stuck, they click on a digital card and they get a hint of how they can move forward, and they can draw as many hint cards as they want to. We gave them avatar makers. You saw when I showed you our team, we developed avatars for ourselves. We gave our youth participants a chance to be avatars if they wanted to. We still don't know what some of these people look like. And then we used online free accessible tools like mirror boards, social messaging apps. We put our workspaces in Notion, which is a really nice all around way to build a project and a lot of different kind of elements for a project. We recorded some specific videos to guide people, and we came up with a lot of information in databases and links. So they had plenty of stuff to work with. When some people thought we gave them too much, but they had enough stuff to work with as they went through this. And then this is where the four of us stayed during the prototype journeys in mission control. Yes, I stole that from a video game, but I dressed it up a little bit to look like Mars. And here we are in mission control, which was really where we did all the overall management. Like if a team had a problem or an envoy had a problem or an advisor needed to talk to us about something, we tried to be available in mission control. All right, then getting to the I'm a vegetarian, so I'm not going to say the meat of the thing, of the essence of the thing. We ran our first prototype. We put all that stuff together, stories, plans, resources, settlements, maps. And then early in 2022, we launched the project with our first group of teams. And it was kind of a compressed version. We did it in a shorter time span because we just needed to know if it was going to work. It was going to work as a learning experience and as an edutainment. We hoped they would have fun at the same time. So that's what we were trying to figure out. Some of the variables that we wanted to test, an age range. We had participants from 11 to 18. Those are their pictures. We gave them the choice of being an avatar or not. So you can see that some chose to be themselves, some chose to be glamorous, they chose to be monstrous. They could choose whatever they wanted to be. But we had a range of age. We had participants from 5 continents. We had Brazil, the Philippines, Kenya, UK, and US. So five countries, 5 continents. We gave people the choice they could work entirely online, they could work entirely in person, or they could work both ways, which most teams did, except for one team that we wanted to test, one team that worked entirely online. So we had a global team that worked entirely online. We certainly had varied cultures and economies represented. We had various kind of different ways of accessing online materials. Some people were super wired, they could get on anytime, anywhere. Some people had to come to a central location to get online. So we tried to work with a level of connectivity as an issue. And certainly the relationship between the envoy and the team was very important. We presented this in English, but we were very aware that a lot of our participants their first language was not English. So we tried to be very cognizant of that and provide some workarounds and work with that in mind at all times. In the future, we hope we'll get to some translation services so we can make it a little easier for more young people globally. Okay, I've had the Model Mars link in the upper right-hand corner. I don't know if you saw it, but it just changed. There's a /stories after it now, because I'm going to tell you briefly how they dealt with their Model Mars challenges, the stories, the journeys, the artifacts, the reporting out. So if you want to go at any time and read the stories, they're all pretty short, just a couple of pages. I encourage you to go there. I'm going to just briefly summarize them on the Shirley Slopes. We thought of this as our hippie settlement. They were kind of freewheeling. They didn't have government, they didn't have a very established way of governing themselves. They kind of got what they need, or they traded with another settlement. They didn't really have anything formal in place. But what happened was a visitor from another settlement came over from a more established and slightly more rigid in terms of its governance, and breaks the rules. And it ends up getting punched out in the cafeteria. So what do? We called this story Law and Order because we thought that maybe the journey would end up codifying some of the rules and regulations so people would know what's okay and what's not okay. That's not the way it went at all. This team decided that they made a stuffed bunny with sensors embedded in it. And it's because I think in true hippie fashion, they thought the way to solve the problem was that why don't we all just get along together, So they invented this, they call it a lifelong companion with embedded technology. It senses the needs of its Martian and provides emotional comfort and support. So that was their big finish to their idea. And another team in the Rexy Tube, these are the underground people. They have a very strong economy because they have a factory underground, and they make major items and sell them for a lot of money. Like they make rovers and other kind of vehicles, because they have the resources that they can mine out of Mars to do some of this stuff. And they're making a lot of money, and they work really hard, but nobody's having any fun. So how do you solve that problem? Interesting journey. This was our team from Kenya, in Nairobi, and what they developed was a futuristic factory. And the bottom level, it was on 2 levels. The bottom level was still a manufacturing place, but it manufactured more of what they needed, not the other settlements. So they decided they wanted better clothing. So they manufactured, wouldn't you feel better if you had a nice Martian outfit to wear? So that was their thinking. But then the upper level, which they burst through the top of the tube. So the upper level is actually above ground. And in it, they built a hydroponic farm and grew all the food they needed. So if you had good food and good outfits, you're going to be happy on Mars, right? So the other interesting thing we thought about this journey, and I'm not sure how cognizant they were of it, but when they burst through the lava tube, they got natural light for the first time. So light, how we react to light and artificial light versus natural light can make a big difference. So we thought that was a really good thing that they did with their 2-level factory. In Elon's Enclave, this is kind of our artsy community, and it actually, some of the characters they're part of a teenage rock band. And there's a big Mars festival because arts and culture are really important in this community. And their performance of one of their original songs just made it to the festival, and they're so excited. But then a member of the group comes in and says, I discovered the Mars sound. And what she's done is she's figured out how to record natural sounds on Mars, which is challenging. The acoustics are way different, thin atmosphere, etc. But she had managed to record some natural Mars sounds and mix them in with their music so that it made a very unique kind of sound. But the problem was if they went and just kind of gave this away, the current agreement was that all the proceeds from the Mars festival would go back to Earth because the Earth had kind of got it started. They still had connections with Earth. So how did they do this? Well, the group then decides that they're going to build a new experience around the Mars sound. They're going to market it as interplanetarily, so that if you live on the Earth or on Moon or any place else besides Mars, you can subscribe to this. And they rework the agreement so that all the proceeds come back to Mars and pay the artist, pay for the festival, pay for the arts education, which is really important there. So Mars Sound, they built an online place where you can access the Mars Sound, and that's what they did. Finally, this is our team that lives on the Ong Flats. Spaceship sex, we knew that would happen, right? Leads to the birth of the first child in an adults-only community. This is a group of people that agreed beforehand they would come to Mars and live in an adults-only community, which means no children, and it's rigidly regulated. They only create enough resources for the 100 people that are there. Nobody else can move in unless somebody moves away. We kind of thought of this as our fascist settlement. They're a little bit fascist. They're very, very strict and rigid. But when the child comes along, they have to figure out what to do. Her mother dies. They are trying to decide if they need to ship her off to some other settlement. She doesn't want to leave. What to do? We thought maybe this would get into some issues of youth rights, like a youth bill of rights, or the whole idea of them rethinking whether young people could be a part of this adults only settlement. But what this team was from the Philippines, what they came up with was something called remembrance vessels, which is a weird little journey that ended up here, because the story actually starts after the mother has died and they hand the young woman, young person, we're keeping all this gender neutral. Yes, we're keeping it gender neutral. They handed her a box with all her mother's stuff in it. And she decides, well, once now my mom is gone, once I'm gone, if you don't have children to remember you, who's going to remember you? So she designed this very beautiful vessel, put her mother's stuff in it. It has some advanced technology built into it. Like one of the things in the vessel is her mother's recipe for lasagna, because she was the settlement nutritionist slash meal person. Anyway, so when you touch a sensor on the outside, of the memory vessel, and it has her mother's lasagna in it. You get to smell her lasagna. So it's multisensory, so you actually can kind of almost recreate the essence of this person, even though they're gone. Well, she's so impressed the people that she lived with, all the adults that were trying to get rid of her, that they actually decided, well, everybody should have a remembrance vessel. And that way, we can die, but we're still here. And so in exchange, I think the way it finally ended up, the young woman agreed to go live in another settlement until she was adult, but then she would be invited back and everybody would have a remembrance vessel. So that was kind of the most convoluted journey, but that's where it ended up. We finished our prototype at the end of April and we all got together, and that was actually not an easy thing to do given all the time zones. Our Filipino students agreed to get up in the middle of the night. That's the only way we could make it work. But they all came, every team, every envoy, all of our advisors came. We were able to invite astronaut Soyeon Yi. She's Korea's only astronaut to date. She lives in Seattle now. But there she is floating on the ISS, and she came and made a really, really inspiring talk to all the young people. And then we had also Mark West from the United Nations, UNESCO. He came, he made a little talk. They all talked about their experiences. They unveiled their artifacts and told us about the artifacts and why they came up with these ideas. And then we had a place to put them, because all along the way, as the teams were going on their journeys, we had yet another team based in London, a specialized team to actually develop an exhibition space and an archive depository where journey materials could be kept. So they came up with something they called the Mars Planetary Museum. I've put the link in the upper right-hand corner, Mars Museum online. And you can go and read more about the museum and see some of the plans. But the idea is that everything created on Mars gets saved and shared. And so the whole thing, turns into kind of a meta narrative of the experience of humans on Mars and a continuous telling of the story of humans on Mars. That's what we hope to accomplish. We learned a few things from this. Let me see how we're doing with time. We're doing pretty good. Well, it works. Everybody did it. Everybody created a great artifact to represent their experiences. They loved the role playing. They got right into the characters. And when they met together, either online or in person, for most of that time, they stayed in character. So the role playing really works. There's a list of some of the kind of roles they had, but they did that very well. I think this was a given, but we weren't really sure. But solving problems on one world creates solutions for other worlds. In fact, we found out it has to be that way, because the whole time they were working on their challenges, they were thinking about, they live on Earth. So we have some of the same challenges on Earth. So they were connecting things back even before we thought they would, and solving problems on Earth, like anger and division. Let's have a cuddly animal, so they figured out how to do things like that. One of the big challenges we found was that futuristic thinking is really hard. What will life be like in 50 years? Will we have currency? Will we have websites? Will we have, a lot of things to think about. But having them actually try to create this in a hands-on kind of way made a big difference. And finally, we think that our youth participants gained agency. They really got into the process. They took on the challenges. I said more agency because I think youth have agency already. But some of the quotes were like, I felt like everything is possible. Another one said, Model Mars changed my life. Wow, you can't get a better endorsement than that. So we're going into the future here with more Model Mars. I'm going to tell you, just as I close, how you can be involved if you would like to, but we're going to expand more new material, new partners, new settlements. We've got, there's all of Mars to develop and discover. Adding more Mars-Earth connections. Again, the challenges that work on Mars also have application on Earth. More crosstalk. We want our teams to talk to each other more, help each other. And also we want to hear from professionals, where we want to give them more contact with people who can inspire and help them. We have a place called the Mars Common that we haven't developed yet. So we're hoping to develop that. It's a shared space. If you know the common as a noun, as a verb, it's like, how do we share the space? How does we make this space work for the benefit of all? So on the Mars Common will be the Mars Fest, the big cultural festival, be future iterations of the Mars Museum and the Mars Transit Hub. We're just thinking broadly about the museum that maybe it'll be built every time, kind of like the Burning Man Festival. When it's time to put it together, you put it together and then you figure out what to do with it afterwards. The transit hub, which is really important. We've got to figure out how people get around on the planet, by ground, by air, how they get back and forth to the planet. And we thought, well, there's someone here that might really be able to help us with this. And so we've decided unanimously to name the transit hub the Robert Zubrin Marsport. Is he here? Is Robert here? Well, damn it. Should I take it away? No, I can. All right. No, he can keep it. No, we really want to honor Robert for his contributions. And I found the quote that I really like, because it's about how we all collaborate to make happen what we want to make happen. And hopefully that will be space exploration. We're preparing future Martians now, and we're hoping to really democratize the space experience for people. We're growing the Model Mars community. Once someone is a part of our group, they stay involved. Like the teams want to do more journeys or more different kind of research. The envoys want to do another team. And finally, just ending with, if you're interested, and I hope you are, some of you, there are a lot of different ways you can get involved. If you have an idea for a story, let me know. If you have an idea for a settlement or where it should be, let me know. If you have expertise in any space-related area, which I know most of you do, we're looking for people to record little short videos that we'll offer to our teams and our community. So if you have partnerships you want to explore, any way you can think of, if you just want to get together and think futuristically with some of us, let us know, because you are absolutely all invited. And I will say one more time, Mars song. Thank you. I have a few stickers left. So if you didn't get a sticker, you can grab one on the way out. I think there might be a few questions.
Thank you very much. So I was really attracted by the Mars Fest and the new sound of Mars. I'm a concert cellist from Los Angeles, and I'm also a metadata and blockchain expert. And the discussion around the music contracts being based on Earth is exceptionally germane, because they are really problematic. How to monetize and how to compensate musicians and artists legally, it's kind of a minefield now, especially with streaming services. So I'm wondering if that team considered a new Mars business model, a Mars-based contract, or even a Martian currency that could be traded and used on the planet. I'm wondering how far they went with that. And I'm also thinking of a Martian business model that is applicable to the other teams. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I actually think they were on their way to something like that. They didn't quite get there, but the idea that if you have something of worth, and in our story, everything Martian is popular on Earth, the more the better. So it does mean that we need to envision a new kind of business policy. And I don't know if you heard Leonard Lopin's presentation yesterday about Mars Bitcoins and all of that stuff. Mars coins. And anyway, we're going to incorporate Leonard into our next iteration. So he's going to help us, right? All right.
Hello, I was just wondering, have you ever considered starting a colony, at least on the Mars, model Mars on the poles? I'm wondering where that would go.
Well, it's all there to develop. And if you want to develop a polar settlement, let's talk.